Okay, let's talk about The Witcher 4, or the next game in the world of The Witcher, however it happens to be called. Most of this video will be pure speculation and will probably end up being entirely incorrect, but let's see where it goes. Also beware, for there may be very sizable spoilers about everything Witcher related.
Spend some gold and I'll get wild.
So first off, when is it coming out? Well, not anytime soon. As we all know, CD Projekt Red is wrapping up development on their next big RPG, which should come out in September this year. However, before they can fully dedicate themselves to the next Witcher game, they will first have to finish their next big project, on which, as far as I know, they are working on as we speak, and that project is the Cyberpunk multiplayer.
Always clear. Go!
You know how there were talks that the developers wanted to release 2 major games by 2021 or 2022 or something? Well, it turns out that both games are actually Cyberpunk related. I had heard about Cyberpunk getting a multiplayer at a later stage, allegedly after the release of all the single-player DLC, but I always thought it would be part of the game. You know, the way Dragon Age Inquisition has a multiplayer? However, now it seems that it will be an entirely separate game. Now, how is this multiplayer thing going to relate to and interact with Cyberpunk 2077 proper? Will it be some sort of open-world MMO-like gameplay, or perhaps something on a smaller and more confined scale? Will it have a story that is separate from the single-player Cyberpunk? Or will you somehow import your characters into the multiplayer game? Who knows? Anyway, the point is, we are in for a long wait. Apparently, they already have a general idea of what they want from the next Witcher game, which they're not sharing, and perhaps with the release of Cyberpunk 2077, more manpower will be put into The Witcher, but I think it wouldn't be until mid to late 2021, at the earliest, before the developers can fully dedicate themselves to the next Witcher game. And if my expectations are true, I don't think we'll see that game earlier than 2025. So, assuming we live that long, what can we expect from The Witcher 4? Well, first off, I'm not sure it will be called The Witcher 4, or if it is, it will definitely not continue Ciri or Geralt's story after the final events of the third game.
Soon, sisters. Very soon.
I've heard many people say how they can't wait to play as Ciri and so on, which is a great sentiment, but I think it's wrong. You see, one of the main points of the third game, like it or not, was precisely to bring Ciri's story from the books to a more conclusive ending. And it did. There are more than one endings, in fact, and I seriously doubt that they'll just try to resume her story from there somehow. And the same goes for Geralt. I think Blood and Wine gave him a proper send-off, and as much as I would love to erase my memory and experience the games once again, I'm actually content with what we got, and I'm okay to put Geralt's adventures to rest.
That we do.
Of course, Ciri and Geralt may have cameos or even small involvements in the new story. After all, one can live hundreds of years and the other one can travel through time and space, but I'm 99% certain that they will not be at the center of the new game. So if not these two, who is going to be the main character and what is the game going to be about? Well, if Thronebreaker The Witcher Tales has shown us anything, it is that, as long as it's done properly, they can make a great story in the world of The Witcher for just about anyone.
My tankard holds but milk of the goat.
Milk?
I mean, Queen Maeve, the protagonist of the game, is absolutely awesome, in my opinion, and she has so little content in the Witcher books. I mean, if you were to compare her to Geralt, she's got basically nothing. And yet, they were able to tell an extremely compelling story about her. Nevertheless though, if I were to make a prediction, assuming that the game is actually called The Witcher something, then the main character has got to be a Witcher. Perhaps a Witcher from another school, or operating in another part of the world. And in terms of timeline, I suppose it will not be too far away from the books. After all, the developers did make further deals with the author, so I would be surprised if they decided to distance themselves too far from the Witcher saga. With that said, we could also play a younger Witcher. It will be a nice contrast with Geralt, since he is already an experienced professional with a well-established past, and really that is the case not just for him, but for many of the other characters as well. Even Ciri, who is very young, has gone through so much already. So having the main character be someone who's just setting off on their path will be a refreshing change. Or perhaps we can have more than one main character. Similar to how we got to play both Geralt and Ciri in the third game, they may double down on that in the next one and have us experience even more parts of the story through the eyes of the second character.
Something tore his leg off. No, gnawed it off.
This will also be in line with the books, given how they switch between Geralt and Ciri, and this time it could perhaps be a witcher and a sorceress, or a sorcerer. Perhaps we could even pick the genders of our characters, who knows?
We just want to give you a glimpse of what will be possible in the released game.
And another thing I would be interested in seeing is a deeper dive into the life and psychology and the overall nature of sentient monsters. This is something that has always fascinated me, and while Blood and Wine did give us a small glimpse into higher vampires, I would love to see even more of that in future titles.
No, wait!
Now what about in terms of locations? I doubt the bulk of the story will take place somewhere very far away from the Northern Kingdoms. We could have parts of it take place in Ophir or Zerrikania, but I'm willing to assume that most of it will be either in Kovir or Nilfgaard. In fact, I think Nilfgaard will be more interesting. You know, it's vast, it has some interesting elven roots, it'll be nice to see and experience the different provinces and the capital, and I think they also had gladiatorial arenas, so Nilfgaard could be a prime location for the next Witcher game. They should definitely make it happen. Also, I just realized I haven't yet talked about the genre. What game will the next Witcher game be? Will they make it into an MMO? Gosh, I doubt it. I assume they'll stick to the third-person single-player RPG model that has worked incredibly well for them over the years, but that doesn't mean they can't spice things up a bit. Perhaps implement some kind of party mechanics? You know, similar to the Mass Effect games, for example. Imagine if you could have Yen and Triss roaming around with you while doing quests. Probably wouldn't end up well, but maybe with a set of new characters, I think it could be an interesting addition. Okay, what else would I like to see? Gontaro Dim? My favorite type of magic?
Whoosh!
No idea where you got such a ridiculous notion.
Really, the possibilities are endless. And like I said, since Thronebreaker, I am convinced that we can have a working Witcher game and a story that is without Geralt, Yen, Triss, Ciri and so on. And as long as CD Projekt Red are as passionate and dedicated and put their hearts into the game as they did with the third one, I think we can indeed have another masterpiece. And that is what I'm deeply hoping for and looking forward to. So, I think that's all I had for the time being. I'll talk more about it once we have some additional information, but until then, tell me what you think of all of this, what are your hopes and expectations, and do you think The Witcher 3 can be matched or even surpassed?
Alas, I couldn't raise it up. For the first time in my life, I swear, Shani.
Oh, devastating for you.
And as usual, thank you very much for watching. Special thanks to the people who chose to support me by becoming members of this YouTube channel or through Patreon. And until the next video, stay tuned and be good.
Yes, Geralt.
You know, been wanting to ask you something.
Ask me now.
Just curious. You ever play Gwent?
Oh, Geralt. Geralt.